Right, Sarah, behave yourself. We're recording.
Really?
Uh, I can pick on you. It doesn't matter.
You can pick on me. It's right.
Yeah. So, as usual, some of our normal panel aren't here today, but we're all the common denominator here is that we're all Terra Australis state nationals, bar perhaps Ben, who might be on his way to burn one, but not quite one, I think. Um, that's the common denominator anyway, is TASA. And we're going to have a chat today about lots of things, but Ben's our guest, and he's been talking to a lot of judges lately and over the last probably 18 months, I think, and he's had some success and he's got a lot of knowledge in this field, which I think everybody would like to hear. Is that correct, Ben? You've been talking to judges and going to court and doing all sorts of stuff. Where do we start, mate?
Yeah, that's right, Wayne. I have been in and out a few times through victimless crimes. I think it's important to only really head in there if you're ever going to seek divine protection. You can't really walk in there if there's a victim at play, unless you really, really do know your stuff. But even then, if you've hurt or harmed someone, there's you pretty well got no chance in there. But if they're coming onto you and harassing you and trying to pillage you and take your money and make you pay or whatever, then you can actually get pretty far in there, and the judges will throw you a bone if you know your stuff. So first of all, I think it's important to know that it's you'd probably either really want to have a burning desire for freedom to want to go in there and do that, because it's full on. So yeah, don't bark up that tree unless you're ready, because it's full bicky, but every time you do it, it gets easier and easier. Now, if you don't have your head fully wrapped around the birth certificate fraud, that's probably the first place you need to start. You need to understand exactly how a trust operates. You need to understand exactly how the birth certificate operates as a security instrument, and how they're using that Crown property to frame you as the trustee. Now, you've also got to know that if you're using that birth certificate as identity, you're committing fraud yourself. So as soon as you put your hand up and say, yeah, that's me, I'm Mr. So-and-so or whatever, or you agree, but you fraudulently use their property to make your own identity. So you're in the wrong, and then they'll treat you that way. So if you can express to the judge that you know the exact position that you're in, they will not like it, but they will ush things along pretty quickly because they don't want to alarm the public that'll be sitting around you. But it's also important to know that not every judge is aware of the birth certificate fraud either. So you might say this stuff to a judge and he might just be blissfully ignorant and baffled and bamboozled by the language that you're putting out there in terms of trusts and beneficiaries and whatnot. But if you can get a trust that's part of the club and knows, they're not all bad people. Some of them are caught in a hard position, I believe. And then that will kind of get you on the same playing field as them. They'll respect you, but you need to give them something they can work with. So then from there, you've also got to be able to beat them on the statutory level, which is the codes that they give you, which is like the Local Court Criminal Procedure Act, the Road Rules Act, anything you can really do creatively within the court to make it a fun experience, so to speak, whether that means asking these cops hard questions that they can't answer and making it a bit of a show, and using the beyond a reasonable doubt principle to your advantage, because if it was a jury of 12 peers, you'd have to convince all 12 of them, which means you pretty well have to have the judge 99% convinced. So if you can even put a shred of doubt on anything, it can't be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So you've really got to leverage that principle for any criminal offence, which is, these quasi-traffic ones. So yeah, every question, everything, any kind of doubt, all these certificates they print out, there's no stamps on them. They're just documents. They call them certificates. You got to say, look, these is printed off with ChatGPT. My daughter could have made this. You really can have fun in there if you read the codes and look around and know what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just felt that burning desire to get in there and have a red hot crack. So, if you've got that fire in you and you want to give it a go, you'll learn quick. I call it burns. So I just kept doing it until my license was gone, and it forced myself to have to learn. But yeah, to really get some success, you need to articulate to the judge that you know the birth certificate fraud. You need to kind of assert your position, and then you also need to throw him a bone and beat them on their level, and then the judge will side with you.
So it's a game.
It is a game.
Yeah. It's a
And
game.
you keep winning it. So, Ben, just a question. I mean, I get asked this a bit, and other people have asked it, and they want to know, do the tacit docs protect you in court? And my answer to that is it's nuanced.
Yeah. It depends what judge you get.
Mm,
You might get a judge that has no idea and might just think you're crazy with these documents. You might get a judge that knows and can't be bothered reading them.
mm,
Most judges can't be bothered reading all that paperwork. Like, the more you learn, the point of the tacit documents is as an induction to learn the language that they're using against us. If you don't know them words, then how can you use them? They'll see through it. These judges, they read these dictionaries, they know the law books, they know the words that you're using. And if you don't know these words and you're just spitting them out like a rehearsed line, they'll see through it.
yeah,
So if you go in there with the documents and you don't know who you are, what you are, the beneficiary, the fraud, the property law that they're articulating, you'll just get chopped up. And
yeah.
I've been chopped up before at the start. Like I haven't always had success. It does, some days you walk out of there and you just be on your knees. Some days you'll be in a cell.
Yeah.
So,
Well, go
yeah,
on,
go
Sarah.
on. No, you
go
go.
on. You go. You go.
All I was going to say was that, and I know Clinton, as you've taught, you and Clinton talk a lot and you practice this kind of stuff and everything else. And I know that quite a while ago, I was sort of considering the idea of maybe, not registering, not driving, like not doing my license, stuff like that. And Clinton looked at me and he said, Sarah, are you prepared to give up 6 months of your life if you get pulled over to actually be able to learn how to defend this in court? And I went, well, if I do that, then I can't do anything else. He said, that's right. You got to think about where your battles are going to be best fought. So we're not saying to everyone out there, as much as Ben and Clinton have done amazing things in court and other people have as well, we're not saying that it's always going to be a win. And I also think we need to let people know that Anna has always said that don't do anything to put yourself in danger. Don't not pay your bills. Don't drive without a license. If you're not prepared to stand there and back yourself like Ben has, just pay everything under VC. So, okay, we're not saying to everyone, go and do this. We're saying if you want to do this, this is the guy to listen to because he is telling you what it actually takes. And Ben, it takes a ton load of work, doesn't it?
It does. But on top of all of that, I think the biggest understanding behind everything that's happening all right now is it's a big frequency war. So they've got us locked in a fear frequency. I went into court because it scared me. And I knew that was the next step for me. To overcome that level of fear would bring me a new level of confidence. If that's too overwhelming for you, start with smaller fears. But the more you start to transcend fear, and just even sending a letter to a council or sending a letter to the ATO or just start doing these things that make you feel uncomfortable will be transcending your fear into courage. And the more you lean into courage and bring your frequency up, the quicker we'll win this. Not everyone's going to fight in the courts. Some people will just do the letters, and the letters are more powerful, to be honest. Like, just stick with the letters, learn them, because that's where the learning is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about working out what you're scared of and walking towards it on your own terms, because otherwise it'll find you at the most inconvenient time.
So, Ben, how you going, mate? Alan here. Mate, so isn't the issue the minute we rock up, we are saying we are the person, because they will call your name, not your name, but they'll call the name of the person or the corporate entity. And the minute we go in there, then we are acknowledging we're them, unless we give the spiel that we're there as a representative, beneficiary, whatever spiel we want to give. And then the judge will say, well, or the magistrate, well, you leave. If you're not the person, then I don't have anything to do with you. You leave, because that's not who we're prosecuting here today. So, but the minute we stand up, isn't that the issue? Because then we're effectively acknowledging that we are that corporate fictional entity. How do you get around that?
Well, look, they'll sniff any sense of fear, hesitancy, or doubt, or dodge. You know, they'll sniff it and they'll cut right through it. So I'll walk straight in there and I just say, Your Honour, that name's Crown Property, because it is. It's a Crown copyright. They've got it on the birth certificate, and it's property. It's a proprietary name. It's in all capital letters. You can get the Styles Manual 6th edition. See it on page 132. It says proprietary names are in all capitals. So it's property. You're talking about land. You're talking about a car. Talking about a registered piece of property. It's worth money. So that's Crown Property, Your Honour. Why has the Crown Prosecutor not claimed that name? I've been threatened here. With men with guns have threatened me to be here. I'm here under protest and duress. They're threatening me with pillage and incarceration. I have no other choice but to be here and deal with this matter. I don't want to be here. And the judge go, oh, well, no one's threatening you. So I'm being threatened. You let them know. I don't want to be here. You guys are threatening me with guns. It's all a record. You got to remember, behind all these people are placeholders. At the end of the day, all that matters is that record. It's a storybook. And the person reading it can't see who's in that room. They just read the words on that paper. And if there's people with guns to your head, that's the story. And it's true.
So though, but isn't that once, because I've watched a few people do it, and once they not convinced, but once he said to the magistrate, I'm not this entity that you are trying to say that I am, the magistrate has said, well, leave this court then, go, because so what do you get, how do you get to be able to stay there to make your peace, or to say?
I'll just say this straight up. I'll say, Your Honour, that's Crown Property. I've been threatened to be here to deal with the matter. No one else can be here because I'm the one you guys are threatening to sort this out. It's Crown Property. Crown Prosecutor is responsible as far as I'm concerned. Why has this not been dismissed? Why is the Crown Prosecutor not acting as trustee? You can start talking straight on the trust law. They will ush things along very quickly if you know your trust law. That's the level that the judges are on. Most prosecutors aren't on that level. But if you start talking trust law, they will push things along pretty quick, because the principles that matter in that courtroom are equitable principles. It's a law of equity. You're in a commerce court. You're talking business. You start talking business to the record, you have the authority. Asking questions
Just define what equity law is. Can you just talk about what equitable law is?
Yeah, so you can search up commercial maxims, principles of equity. You're walking into a business court. You're just talking about property. Creditors, debtors, asking questions makes you the creditor role. Making statements makes you a debtor. So that's the whole level of law when you're learning trust and estates. The 10 commercial maxims pretty well are the law in those courtrooms until they've gained jurisdiction over you, and then you walk into their statutory law. And they will move you into their statutory law the longer you're in there, because they just have that many trap doors that even if they know you know what you're doing and they think that they've got one over you, they'll push you to the next level down.
So you've got to know what you're doing. So you didn't have all this knowledge at the start, and
no, I went in there just guns blazing, no idea.
yeah, right.
few one-liners.
yeah. Bloody hell! So the minute you start talking, you've got to let them know where you're coming from, like where you're at.
Yeah.
Like straight off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you approach the barmaid, or do you stand back or seat back in your seat?
I walk straight up to the bar. I'm there for business.
Yeah, because that's most people say, oh no, you don't cross the line or whatever, and
there are methods of doing it where you can just reject the contract 3 times from a distance, but if the judge doesn't know, then you still lose.
Yeah, that's another thing. You're saying straight off the bat there too that some of the judges don't even know about the birth certificate fraud.
Some of them don't know. They've got a big web going on, and I don't know how they're doing it, but yeah.
Do you
But
reckon
look, the
it's
ones they're the most dangerous. The ones that don't know are the most dangerous ones because they think you're a criminal for driving unregistered. Whereas the other ones at least can have a smile and be like, "Yeah, he knows." Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing too to remember is that these courts are not actually there to administer justice. They are basically offshoots of the banks. That's all they are, is just they're all about money and they're all about settling perceived debts and it's all about claiming money off us. So it's when you look at it as a business rather than, as Ben said, it's overcoming that fear. And we've had that fear drummed into us time and time again, that, all these things are to be frightened of, and they're actually not to be frightened of but you do have to know if you're going to step up and play that game, you need to know what the rules of the game are.
That's right. And there's a really good resource. I recommend anyone who wants to do this get on solutionsempowerment.org. Mark's had over 500 Aussie court cases, and he's got a really good skill set he offers specifically for Aussie courts. But there's tons of good resources out there. But like at the end of the day, court's just one aspect of this. The ultimate goal is just to transcend fear and walk towards courage and beyond, whatever path that may be for each of us.
Yeah, well, I'm not starting where you started.
We've all got a different path to walk, that's
Yeah, I know.
important for us to know too.
I know. But like what you're doing is a good thing. It's keeping pressure on. I mean, we're all applying pressure, if you like, in our own way by being who we are and doing what we do and that. But you're applying a different kind of pressure, and there's not too many people that want to walk in those shoes, mate. I don't think.
Well, as I said, I did it because it scared me, and I knew in my heart, deep down in my heart, like these people shouldn't be telling me that right or wrong.
Yeah.
They're not the people. They don't have the right. And I knew at a very young age I'd got into a bit of trouble, according to them.
Yeah.
I won't get into that, but I knew I wasn't hurting anyone or doing anything wrong. So why mine a sell? And
Yeah.
it's just stuck with me a long time.
Yeah. Very good.
I can relate to you, mate, when you said you early on there you went in and threw a few one-liners off because I'll just quickly tell you my little bit of a story. So I've got a mate similar to you, and he's successful in doing that similar thing. Anyway, I wanted to learn from him, and I thought, oh well, you got to bite the bullet, and the only way to do it is to go in there, and and it's fearful when you walk in there, but it was only over like a speeding fine. So I just thought best to do this over something that's small, that doesn't matter. Worst case scenario, you pay the thing at the end of the day. And so I had all the stuff ready to say, and I went in there with all these, things to comment. But they put it over you when at the beginning, and I was very fearful. And the problem was I had to fly down to this town on a plane to get to there to go to the court. And when he said to me, you say what you just said one more time and you're going to be in the cells, And I quickly thought to myself, I'm going to miss my plane flight home. And the fear factor jumped in. And, I walked out of there bloody, worse off than I went in. But I learned a lot from the experience. And next time, it's game on. But, unless you go in there, you don't know what to expect until you're standing there and he's talking down to you, And I got empowered by it, I've got to say.
Next time you can say, I'm sorry if I offended you, or what did I do wrong? Or were you just threatening me?
Yeah.
And then he'll say, I wasn't threatening you. Oh, so I've done nothing wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That way. But you got to really just questions, all questions. Yeah. But that's good. Just being able to go in there is fucking magic, man. Like it's a different feeling,
Mm.
Yeah, well, I went in there. I tried that up here, like, more than 2 years ago now, and I was sort of not very confident, but I went in there, but I didn't know a whole heap of stuff. I had all this evidence. I was going to fight him on the evidence, and I forget, I got kicked out the first time because they want you to go away and come back. They want that 3-month period, don't they?
And yeah, they drag it out.
Yeah.
That's part of the fear game.
Yeah. And the court date the second time round was set, and I sent him a letter, and it was true. I couldn't get there. I was away somewhere in a bloody truck carting cattle. I couldn't get there, and they ended up, they had the court case without me, and they can't increase the fine, but up here they've got victims levy. That's right. So they tripled the victims levy, left the fine the same, and I thought, I don't think I want to play this game. So I just paid it, left it alone. But I've been in there, Ben, when you've been there, and you handle yourself much better than what I did, I can tell you.
Oh. Thanks, mate. Yeah, it's just rehearsal, lines, learning, writing down lines, having scripts.
Yeah.
So, Ben, I'm interested, mate. So I believe you're on your way to being reconveyed, or you are reconveyed. I'm interested to know what your game plan may be once you are returned to the land and soil, if you're not already, in how you would attack it. Would you still go in there representing the person, or would you do it via paperwork and return service, do you think?
No, look, to be honest, I've got 2 trials left. I'm not looking for a fight anymore. I'll put some number plates on my car. Mate, I've had like 6 trials so far. I've got 2 to go. I'm, I've kind of delivered a level of competency in there. I feel confident with what I can do. I've put them all on notice. They all know exactly who I am. I've got other things to do with my time, and I can help in other ways now, I don't feel the need to be an aggressor the whole time. They've aggressed on me and oppressed me, and I've put the pressure back on them, and I'm not antagonizing them anymore, for the sake of a $500 rego. I've got other things to do with my time. I've dedicated probably the last 4 years of my life to this. And I'm not looking to continue to kick the wasp's nest, so to speak.
It seems to me that pretty much the first thing to learn is to control the fear, because then the mind will operate at a much higher level. Like you say, if you treat it like a game and there's no fear, then you would think much more clearly. So you hear a lot more of what's going on rather
That's
than
right.
missing what's being said because you're frightened about the last thing they just said.
Well, that's where knowledge comes in. The fear is always going to be there, but the more knowledge you have and the more rehearsed lines you have and the more tools you have, the more competent you are to handle that fear when it creeps up. But if you got nothing to say, you'll get bowled over. But if you got something to deliver on the day, you'll feel like you did your best. So it's just about, studying, getting stuff ready, and moving in despite fear's presence. And then every time you do that, it has less and less control over you.
Yeah, so it's been a worthwhile journey for you, mate. Like you've overcome some fears, achieved a bit, and I mean, at the end of the day, it is a game. But you've had some losses, you've had some wins, but like for you personally, you've gained a lot out of it. I know you've given up a lot of time, you've given up a lot of your life.
I've invested the time, I wouldn't say I've given up anything, because the time that I've invested has now transformed my confidence and my whole persona. It's delivered me a whole new skill base. I can use this legal speak in business, everyday communication. Like, it's a tool that you have, a very powerful power to know these words. You don't ever want to use them to oppress people, but you will use them when the time comes, and you'll feel the weight of them.
Yeah, so you got some value out of it, like out of your journey.
It's all value. It's gold. It's one of the best things you'll ever do is learn this stuff, because it's freedom. The words they're using to control you will liberate you when you know how to use them.
Yeah. Well, there you go. For anybody out there who's battling fear about something, and we all are, we're all frightened of something. Ben's story's worth remembering, because he was deliberate. You went and deliberately put yourself in that place, mate, didn't you?
Well, I knew if I didn't go in there on my terms, I'd end up in there probably on their terms, and it might be a bit worse. And I've become a better person because of it. I can honorably say that.
Yeah, right.
Ben, just before you go, I know you've got to fly because you've got something else on, so thanks for the time. But just before you go, because I know you've been a relatively active member of the Assembly up there, but obviously you've spent a lot of time doing this, so you've been a little bit removed from things as well. Do you think that the world is, I mean, we've talked a bit about frequency and fear and stuff like that. Do you think the world is actually moving away from fear, or do you think that there's still a lot of
100%.
people
Yeah,
locked
you can
in
tell
that?
just from how healthy people are getting. You can tell just from the amount of people that are waking up every day. We're past the fulcrum point and we're
Yeah.
coming into like massive awakening. It's just going to take time, but you can just tell people are getting healthier. People are dying less. After the COVID, that was probably the lowest point. Now we're just on the up, like you can see every day people walking around, everyone's getting healthier.
Mm.
People are more knowledgeable. People are tuning into more natural things. Like these communities are growing all around the world. Like it's
Yes.
100%. It's so evident to me now that we're all transcending up and going into a higher frequency. But everyone's just going to be on a different level. So you've got to be able to communicate with them at the frequency they're on and try and help them at that level.
Yeah, it's funny, like the word frequency itself, like 5 years ago, nobody, like it was a very underused word. Sarah and I have just come off a Zoom call previous to this one. Frequency was mentioned there. It's been mentioned here again. It's in common use. That itself is probably a good sign anyway. I think that we're heading in the right direction. Because it wasn't a common word before. You just didn't hear it, huh? A good sign.
And one other thing, do you think that the cops or the policy enforcers up there are learning? I mean, obviously, I
I've
know
talked to
you
a
and
few of
Clinton
them.
have done what you can to educate.
I've talked to a few of them. Most of them are just sick of it because they just see us get out next week, drive around again. So they're like, I've heard from a few of the cops are like, yeah, these people, we can't be bothered dealing with these people anymore because, nothing changes and it's too much work having to go to court and talk to yous. And so word's gotten around for them and they don't really want to be fucking dealing with it either.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, okay. Well, that's good to know because if we ever do get to the point where we have, universal plates across the country, they'll know not to bother us, and that's because of people like you and Clinton. And I know there's others out there that have been pushing back on the same thing in different ways. So, thank you from all of
If
us.
you do want to drive around unregoed, have all your paperwork ready to go in your car and have an affidavit ready with all the fraud put together, hand it to the cop on the day, and then that will become evidence in court and no judge is going to want to look at that evidence. So that should be enough bulletproof ammo to give to that cop on film and on footage, because if you've got it on film, he's got it on film, they've got to assess that in the court. They're not gonna, and then you can put that on the public record. It's just a nightmare for them. So if you have all your kit ready to go in your car, checkmate.
Okay.
So the affidavit, what are you talking about there with the affidavit?
You just say, I am Benjamin. I don't have a proprietary name. My name is not styled in all capital letters. If it ever is, it's a misrepresentation of who I am and it's fraud. You can have all this stuff on there. My address is planet Earth. You don't have, address at whatever number street you are. You can just put all this stuff on there. You can answer all the cops' questions in a roundabout way, so you're not being belligerent. Yeah. And you can still articulate the entire birth certificate fraud on one affidavit, hand it to them. No judge or head prosecutor is going to look at that and be like, nah, delete this, see you later.
Maybe we need to get you together with Callan and Albert on WA and help do their little, I don't know if you ever heard about it, Ben, but Albert and Callan on WA had a whole thing to hand to the cops when they got pulled over. And it was to actually send an invoice to the cop straight away. You've contracted with me. Okay, that's great. Here's your invoice from my fee schedule that you've got there in your hand. But if we could put something like that together as part of that package, that'd be
awesome. Put us into contact with them. I'm happy to work with them. We'll get something together.
Cool.
So that affidavit, I'd like to get that a template type thing made up, Ben. Are we able to do that?
Yeah, give us a couple of weeks, shoot us a message and remind me and I'll get it together for you.
Beautiful.
That'd be great, mate. That'd be great. That'd be great because that would be a very handy piece of paperwork for people like Alan and myself.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds of people, thousands of people out
Yes.
there that need this kind of thing. So yeah, mate, I'll be on to you. I've got your number,
All
and
Alrighty.
we'll just see
right,
if we
guys,
can
I've got to
get.
run anyway.
Yep.
All right, mate.
Okay.
Appreciate your time, mate.
No
Thanks,
worries. Thank you,
Ben.
Good
guys.
on you, Ben.
See you
Thank
later.
you.
Soon.
See you, mate. Yeah.
Well, there you go. That was Ben. So for anyone who who hasn't heard the backstory for Ben, and I'm presuming Alan and Sue haven't, after Clinton had his run-ins with the courts and had moderate success, Ben sort of went, yep, I need to do this. And he really, really, really wanted to understand how the paperwork worked and what the whole trust thing was and the freedom thing. And he knew, and he said to me, I knew there was no other way to teach myself, because he said to just sit there and learn it without any pressure, I wouldn't learn it. So he said, I put myself in the role where I had to learn it. I had to. There was no other way out of it. So my understanding of the story, and I could have it slightly wrong, but my understanding of the story is that he didn't have his plates on and he lined himself up where he knew the cops were sitting on the day, and he ran a red light and they didn't come after him. So he turned around and he ran the red light again. And he had to go through a couple of times. And when they finally got him, he went, oh, took you long enough. Which should have warned him right from the get-go. but that was Ben's entry into this whole process, because he really, really wanted to put himself out there and learn it. So kudos to him, because he knows what he's doing. And apparently he's magic to watch in court.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
And this was several months ago, and he's gotten better since then, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched him call two coppers to the stand and interrogate them, and brilliant stuff. And they
It's
hate
amazing.
it. They
It's
do not
amazing
like
when you watch someone like that. You can see that they know that they know.
Yeah.
It's the confidence that oozes through. It's like you say, that's a frequency that everybody else in the room would pick up. This guy's not afraid of us.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, he really does know how this game works. We better be careful.
And this all comes back once again to jurisdiction. You know, knowing you can't hammer this enough, hey, jurisdiction. Because knowing that in your own mind and your own heart and soul, that's what puts you on that plane, on that level field, not level field, but on that, you know.
And he's absolutely right. The very first thing you must absolutely know in your heart is that you are not that name.
Yeah.
Most of it people really get sucked into, but I've always been called that. And they aren't 100% convinced that they aren't that name. So until you really know, it makes it very difficult. You know, it's a little chink in your armor until you know.
You are not the name.
Well, you're not the name, and you know, I was reading one of Anna's documents, which we'll get to shortly, but there's a lot of stuff that's decided in commerce, and particularly in the air jurisdiction, because air is all about thoughts and ideas and concepts. And so, you know, things like motivation get called into question. And you know, that's a really fuzzy area when you start to kind of come into it. And I think this is the thing between when he said the judges, if they know that you know where you're at, and if they know what they're talking about, it makes it a little bit easier. If the judge knows that you know what you're talking about and he knows what you're talking about, because he has that understanding of all of that jurisdictional stuff, it makes it a lot easier for you and for them, because, as he said, they'll hurry you up, because what Ben said was they don't want to alarm the other people around you. What he probably meant to say is they don't want to awaken the people around you.
Yeah.
So they keep you, they want to just move you through real quick. But if you go in and you've got a judge or a magistrate who doesn't know what you're talking about, that's where you sort of can come unstuck a little bit too. But again, that's where you need to, you know, if you can say, are you sure that that's the right call there, you know, Your Honour, because blah, 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 it puts them on a little bit of a back foot, and you're still being respectful. But again, it is about jurisdiction and knowing where you stand and knowing that they know where you stand. So
And that's very
It does.
good advice for on the side of the road too, because a lot of people want to try and educate the police officer they're dealing with on the side of the road, and they literally do not know what you're talking about. So, you know, you're trying to teach a pig to sing. Oh, that was a bad analogy. Sorry about that. But
I think it was a good analogy, actually, Sue.
was accidental. But you know what I mean? It
There
frustrates
will be no
cut
edits.
that.
it
There are-
frustrates you and it annoys the
pig.
anyway. Wasn't intended to be about the police. But let's move on. But we are usually convicted by the words out of our own mouth.
Yeah.
We're the ones that drop ourselves into the wrong jurisdiction, the one that we didn't want to be in. We're the ones that actually, have you got an excuse for speeding? You know, well, and you try to think up an excuse, which is your admission that you were speeding. Like, so we don't even realize, damn, we fell for that trick. But yeah, best to say as little as possible and use paperwork wherever you can, because you can think a lot more clearly when you're writing a letter than when you're trying to formulate a response under a bit of pressure. Good advice.
Well, I like the there'll be no edits either on this video, Sue. I just want you to know, because I haven't got time to edit stuff. You knew you you knew you were being recorded. I'm sorry.
It's a very old saying.
I know. Oh, I lost my place now. Yeah, the affidavit that, yeah, I think that's a good idea to have that ready. I would never have thought of that. It's well, we'll have to make it. What do we can't do an affidavit. It's got to be a
living testimony.
Living testimony.
Yeah.
Which we effectively have in our documents anyway. You know what I mean? So,
well, we do, but we could put it in. We could do it another one in, like, plain speak, like today language, like.
I think if we did one that was a one-pager, I think that, and just a few dot points, I think that would be a lot more effective than like the 31 dot points that it is at the moment.
Oh yeah, no, I only want one page. It just.
But I don't know, Alan and Sue, do you know about what Callan and Albert had put together on WA? No?
I heard a brief overview like a year ago.
Yeah. So Callan is now free. He's been released. He was in there for, I don't know what it was, but anyway, he's out now, so that's fine. He and Albert, though, had done an amazing job, and Wayne and I were lucky enough to see a presentation on it. But essentially what they had put together is basically, if you got pulled over, you could present your paperwork to the officer that pulled you over, but basically on the front of it says, okay, if you actually continue with this interaction, you understand that you are entering into a contract and there will be a fee attached to that according to the fee schedule, and you highlight the bits in the fee schedule that they'll be contracting to. And then if they continue on, you say, well, okay, and then you've got their details, and it was some way that you could actually invoice WA Police straight up for that interaction. And it would,
so while they're talking to you, their phone goes ding.
Get a bill. So it'd be really good if we could get this affidavit thing that Ben's talking about with that set of documents to give to the police, because I think, we are moving to a point where more and more of us are going to start coming together. Just all of the different groups start to put our ideas in on the pile. I mean, what Living in Private have done with the tax thing, getting the tax back, that's an amazing thing. And I know people have been using that. So it's all about starving the beast.
Actually, that tax back process that we've all been watching, that comes from Solutions Empowerment.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
from
I got it wrong.
I think Live in Private might use it, but it definitely was Mark's process that we used. Yeah.
So
Okay.
what he said there, I hadn't thought of before, but he made a really good point because, I mean, I carry in every automobile I travel in my fee schedule and documents ready to go with highlighted bits in the fee schedule with my whole spiel. But what he said there was that with that affidavit showing that you're giving that under the video, so with it being videoed, so then that has to be then presented in court as evidence. That to me that's a really critical, interesting point that I hadn't thought of, because up until without that, anything you present, like your fee schedule and that, they can go, oh, well, we don't want to accept that or anything. But if it's video recorded, then it's evidence and they would have to have a look at it. So that's a game changer, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. I think it might be time to sort of start reviving that. I know it kind of got bound up in the pet tour thing, but maybe we do need to have a group of people that look at all of the aspects of traveling, and bring all these pieces to the table and go, okay, what can we put together that's a whole package, so that for anyone who does want to attempt to travel without rego license, all the rest of it, can have that, we can put together a package for people who wish to do that. And anyone that's listening, you don't have to. Okay, you take on the battles that you are prepared for and wish to prepare for, but it would be good to have a package ready to go.
I know Ray was working on something about a year ago, so I don't know whatever happened to that. Ray from WA.
It was part of that Albert Cullen thing.
Okay.
And I know that Ben and Kim have put a bit of work into plates. And then there was someone else in Queensland, I think, who was talking about, was it the United Postal Union or something like that, the UPU? And if you have some kind of number on that, that protects you because it's the same as the RPP number. So there's a whole lot of bits and pieces of knowledge, all of which are valid and all of which would work, but we need to put them together in a cohesive form.
Yeah, the anything to do with the UPU is definitely corporate and wouldn't be any help at all.
Are you talking about the UCC 1-308 on plates?
No, well, that might work too. So I've heard both, but I did hear that there was a guy that was traveling around because, people are saying their RPP numbers because that makes you the postal, you the postmaster. So whether it's just a variation of that, I'm not sure, but there is a guy that has been doing that, but Wayne might be right, it's corporate. So we'd have to have a look at it anyway, I think.
I know what you said was the UPU, that's the Universal Postal Union,
Yeah.
and I know that Craig up here on Darwin, he had stuff done through the UPU, and I mentioned it to our head of state, and he said, "Oh no, it's definitely corporate," and I believe it is because I haven't done the postmaster committee and looked a little bit at the UPU and their history and where they come from. Yeah. You don't want anything to do with it.
I think the idea behind it was that if you have the plate on your car that makes your car virtually mail, they are not allowed to interfere with the mail. Like it's a federal offence to do that. So again, it's another jurisdictional thing. There are certain things they're not allowed to interfere with. And they are waiting for that fellow to come back from the mines. He was going to give them his process on the law and litigation channel. Maybe
if we do elect a land postmaster, that's postmaster, maybe that would give us the protection.
Maybe.
I know it's international law.
Interesting.
Anyway, but the other part of that equation is too, you can have your personalised plates and everything, but they still have the birth certificate for the car. The car still belongs to them if the car's registered. I think even if it's got a VIN number, that's why they try and use WOVIs, get a car from the written off vehicle index. So, anyway, we're giving away secrets here, but
the challenge for the existing system is that they have to have a way to identify cars that have been stolen. So looking at it from their point of view, if you're driving around in a vehicle or an automobile that's got no VIN number on it, as far as they're concerned, that could have been, stolen. So we have to have a way of telling them, of recording with them, that when we are in this automobile running this particular set of plates, this is who we are, this is the jurisdiction we are operating in, and therefore they choose to leave us alone.
Well, we would instruct them to leave us alone, essentially. It's
Well,
whether
they're
they
smart, they
believe
would choose to leave us alone.
So they would follow
It's
instructions if they were smart.
it's a very difficult subject to draw a conclusion on, isn't it? It's
In a format, in a forum like this, yes, but I do think that there would be value in getting various talking heads from TASA and outside if people had the
well,
wisdom.
I think
to
if
come
it's
together.
if it's done to death early on,
Mm.
I reckon, but it probably, I don't know whether there's anybody even doing that anymore. I'm not up with the groups, but it would probably, pardon me, it would probably pay to relook at it in light of what people like Ben have achieved and other people that have been pushing back in different ways, and see what is new out there and see if we can get something out of that. That probably
Well, we
just
know
all
more
needs to be
now.
relooked. Eh?
We know more. We've done more research. We have more knowledge under our belt. We're a bit braver. We know a little bit more about who we are. So all of those things would contribute.
I mean, the whole idea of needing a license, the only people who need licenses are people who are operating from another jurisdiction. They don't belong here on the land. In other words, they've come here from, in this case, Australia, which is not this land jurisdiction. And if you are operating on another country, you need a license to operate in that country, on that land. That's the whole premise behind any license. So once everyone's signed, because I remember reading old books about people that, my dad, my grandfather walked into a car yard. He bought his first automobile. The guy in the car yard showed him how to drive it around the block, and he drove it home. So there wasn't, I'm not sure about registration, but there definitely wasn't any license involved. And by the time he drove it 30 kilometres home, he knew how to drive the car.
Yeah.
So licenses in our living memory weren't a thing. So these have been brought in, and I suspect they came in alongside the Citizenship Act and all these other acts that have shanghaied people from the jurisdiction of the land permanently into the maritime jurisdiction.
Well, the very fact that in the Northern Territory, I mean, they come out every, second year and say, oh, come and get your license. It's free for 10 years. Come and get your registration. It's free for 5 years. They're trying to get a lot of the originals who drive unlicensed and unregistered. They're trying to get them in because they're not registered. They're not there's no birth certificate for a lot of these older ones. So they're trying to get them in so that they can pull them into the maritime because they need the money. And so once they've got that tick box, we've got another citizen that's worth X amount of $1 million, that adds to our balance so that, our balance sheet looks better. We've got more assets.
Yeah, that's right. They need you to be belligerent against your own land. They need you to consent.
Yeah.
And if they haven't got a birth certificate they can act upon, they've got no instrument to use to drag you into another jurisdiction.
Yeah.
With licenses, I thought what I've always read is that a license is only is permission to do something which would otherwise be illegal. But then I don't know where you stand with a marriage license. Like if we use your father, the analogy of getting the car and driving it home and didn't need a license, I suppose you could do that with your bride as well, could you? You could just take her home without a license, or would that be all right? Or
well, you never used to have to get a marriage license. You had a wedding and it was recorded in the church, but there was no license involved. There was only a license when the state wanted. They wanted their finger in the pie too. Any product of the business merger, as far as they're concerned, they want to be able to tax that and get their cut.
Alan, you had something to say?
I was just wondering where you were going with that, mate. I was waiting for it to come to a different ending, to be honest.
I couldn't go there. I couldn't go there. So a marriage license really ties the two estates together, and a divorce pulls them apart.
Well, there's some debate about that, whether it actually pulls them apart or it just does it on paper, because we uncovered a year or two ago the fact that, so I'm divorced. I haven't seen my ex in, I don't know, 20, 30 years. Don't know where he is. Don't know if he's still alive or dead, whatever. But if he died and didn't have someone who was going to pay his bills and pay for his funeral, technically they would come back to me, even though we're divorced.
That'd piss you off.
You better believe it. So that's why there was a whole big thing about, do we reconvey divorces? Do we actually say them, or do we just, reconvey the marriage, or how do we do all of that? So just, there's a whole lot of sort of fuzzy grey area around that too. So yeah, it's.
Oh, I got two exes.
Are they remarried, mate? Are they remarried?
No.
Oh, bugger.
You're in a world of pain, mate, coming up. You can only hope that you die first.
I thought I got away from all that.
Most people don't know, Wayne, you're safe.
I think I am. I'm going to pretend I'm safe anyway.
Look, I don't think it happens a lot, because obviously we would hear a lot more about it if it did. But
yeah.
Fine. It's one of those things, like, in American states, it's still illegal to ride your donkey along the main street. Like, anyone owns a donkey anymore, unless you're Amish. I mean, but it's these stupid laws. They get put in for a reason, and then it goes like 50 years ago, and no one actually goes back and says, are these rules still, is there any relevance to these?
They just keep making new statutes.
That's exactly right.
Millions of them.
And it's to the point where a lot of those statutes counteract each other and contradict each other. And it's nuts.
I know from being a truckie, I know that, we would all over, not so much up here, but down south, we would all suddenly start to get pulled up over some issue, maybe driving with your elbow out the window, or or some other stupid thing, and it'd be happening everywhere. It's like they've had a toolbox meeting and they've said, what are we going to look at this week? And they all pick the same. They say, we'll pick this, statute A, B, C, whatever number. And they go around, they enforce that for a week, but they haven't got a very good memory, because they've got to just have one or two that they're working on, because otherwise they don't know where to find them when they find you doing something that they think's wrong and they haven't got the exact statute. So they pull you up when you're not doing anything wrong, and they get you on this weird thing. But it happened in bursts. Like they'd all be doing it. You'd get pulled up in New South Wales, and tomorrow afternoon you get pulled up in North Queensland, and they're asking you the same thing. Like that's not very good. Not very good.
Well, do we want to move on to the anadocs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All righty. So the last one that she did last week was, which we talked about, was blood treaties, and she was saying that blood treaties predate any other mandate, law, treaty, agreement, monarchy, etc. They extend across the earth and into the cosmic realms and territories ruled by galactic powers on behalf of all angelic nations, mankind, and allied humanoids, and they have been invoked, I'm presuming by her. So this week, the next notice after that was she put in a couple of videos, and essentially she's talking about Tartaria and how they pulled Tartaria apart and squashed it and killed it and whatever. And what she's saying is that essentially the 200 fallen, so that's the the fallen angels that came in with Lucifer, came in and posed as holy men in all of the different, that's where religion started. And then they pressed the whole scheme and system that we currently live under onto us. So, the war for profit, the raping and pillaging of the land, the digging for minerals, everything is a profit-based thing. But they use the pretense that we need to go through them, that's the holy men, to connect to the Creator. So what they essentially did was sever our connection to the Creator. We can all personally connect with Source, but she's basically calling out the Vatican and everything else, every other religion, and saying that really they're all just, there's different versions of the same structure, which was designed to separate us from who we really are. Okay. The next one, and she put some videos in there about Tartaria and what was lost, and it's really interesting about they've got some stuff about the coding that's used in the Rose Church. I don't know if anyone knows about the Rosie Church in, I want to say Scotland, I might be wrong, but it's one of the most carved, most beautiful churches in the world. And they said that there's this naval coder that got in there and actually started to notice that all these little things were slightly different. So he got in there and he decoded them with his son, and they created this beautiful music, which is amazing. So, yeah, anyway. The next notice was the end of 2,500 years of karma. And what she is saying is that the interstice and the karmic wheel have been closed down as they were being misused and were actually causing increasingly severe problems for people. Also, there is a recommendation to cleanse yourself of all karmic ties. So the astrological situation at the start of this week was perfect to do this, but you should probably do it now in any case. And remember that intention, is everything. So if you do a karmic cleanse, saying that you release yourself from all karmic ties, everything else. So the interstice and the karmic wheel, we've all heard about karma, is that, you go, you die, you're reborn to deal with the karma that you did in your first life and so on and so forth, and different lessons and stuff. And the interstice was where you go to when you die, sort of for rest, recuperation, to reflect on what's happened. It's a nice place to be, all the rest of it. But what they were actually doing was you used to have as long as you needed to, heal from whatever trauma you'd been through. But it was getting to the point where people were like being recycled after 2 months. So, and a lot of people were getting a lot of bleed through from other lifetimes and all sorts of stuff, and it was causing all sorts of issues. And there are now actual issues that psychologists and people that deal with brain stuff are saying, no, this is it's a borderland syndrome or something like that. They've actually named it because there are so many people coming through with it. So anyway, then she's got a Granobites, which she then turned into an international public notice, specifically to Elon Musk. Now, for those of you that don't know or haven't figured it out, Elon Musk is either a Venusian or a Martian. I want to say Venus. I want to say he's from Venus originally, and he has come here because he really wants to help save the planet and turn it back into the beauty that Venus was or is or whatever. Apparently he and Anna have got some kind of connection, and he is trying to now find her through all of his AI chat stuff, and she's saying, look, forget that, just go back into your heart space, work it from there. Then Anna has a response to the banking scandal thing. I suspect this is a thing that was put onto one of the Telegram chats the other day, which I read. And she's basically saying that, listen, when people start to sling mud, look to see if they attach their real name or contact details to it. She's always been upfront and contactable since the beginning, which is true. She puts her address and phone number and all the rest of it on those documents, so people know who she is and where they can contact her. This other document, though, It basically was saying that Anna was on the take, Global was on the take, the safety vault, people putting money into it and couldn't get it back, and all the rest of it. So the safety vault is it's there as a long-term investment, okay, and it's there for when the money crashes, when the American dollar crashes, the safety vault will actually give these people back the money that they've invested into it, but in silver dollar value. The thing about there was a credit union that went broke. She said the Virginia Assembly tried to start up a credit union, which they should have been allowed to do, but the banking cartel got wind of it and wouldn't let them start it up. So unfortunately, Anna's name got dragged into that and Global's name got dragged into that, but it really wasn't anything to do with Anna or Global. It was the Virginia Assembly trying to do it. And obviously, Anna is who she says she is. So that's fine. Then the next one is an explanatory document basically saying that both the IRS and the Internal Revenue Service, two separate corporations, she explains how both of the private corporations are just that. They're private corporations, how they've got no actual standing for men and women standing on the land. So they're not anything that applies to men and women, and in fact have not been ratified by the American Constitution. Neither of them have. They are by and large criminal organisations, as is the ATO, I'd have to say, because the ATO, there's never been read into Hansard that we should have a tax office. There's a lot of research out there at the moment saying that the ATO is just a private corporation ripping money off people for no good reason. So we would suggest that people who, if this comes as a surprise to anyone, do some research and learn just who and what those organisations are. But the IRS is being pulled apart anyway in America. Then Anna, I'd say this one she wrote very, very late at night. Essentially what she's coming down to is saying, we need to focus on the words that we use because they are forever. Once we have put something out there, it lasts. And anyone who's heard something said to them when they were a kid and that went right in and it's still there, you know what I mean. Words are forever and they script our now and our future. Okay? I can't tell you. There was a girl that told me when I was 8 that the only reason anyone ever talked to me was because the teacher made them. And you know, I believe that. Truly, honestly believe that till I was 31. And it screwed my life up for a long time. So play love songs from all the genres, preferably in 432 hertz, and speak wisely, remembering that words are forever. Be mindful of what you say, people. Then I think she's probably saying this in response to all of the people that are saying, why are you giving us all this esoteric weirdness? Because it's all odd. So what she's essentially saying is that we need to start realizing that the energetic and spiritual levels and realizations of all of us need to change in order to change the physical. Okay? We need to change how we think and how we feel before that comes in at a reality level that we can touch and feel it. The sooner we can change here and here, the faster the physical world will change to match our frequency, vibration, whatever. So do the energetic cleansing and detoxing. Be mindful of your words and what you listen to and what you take into your energy field. Observe your emotions. Think about what you actually are viewing. Think about when you're talking to people. Think about when you're out, if you're gossiping, and we all gossip. I mean, we're human. That's what we do. We pass around information that way, but kind of sit there and go, well, is this serving anyone? Is it helping me? Is it helping someone else? I mean, if someone's gossiping to you and saying, look, that person across the road, they've been really down because she's been so sick and whatever, that's not terrible gossip if you then use it to say, go and make some meals for that person across the road because they're having a tough time. But if you're just gossiping just to slag someone off, then maybe stop it, okay? Observe your emotions. Who we are will directly correlate with what we experience. And this is what when Ben and Darren and that talk about frequency and vibration, that's what they're saying. But we also, and this is my addendum here, There is a difference between being passionate about something and being argumentative about something. And I think a lot of people are seeing those two as the same thing, and it's not. So start with the premise that no one, unless they're a psychopath, no one wakes up in the morning and says, I want to piss off 6 people today and then my day will be set. Okay, no one does that. Everyone wakes up wanting to have a nice day. No one wants to go out and upset people. So if someone has triggered you into feeling upset, maybe your first question should be, did they mean that? Did they mean that to hurt me? Because if they didn't, and I get upset, then maybe I'm getting upset over nothing, but maybe I could go back to them and say, did you mean that to hurt me? They might just not realize. Okay. So who we are, the vibration, the energy, the feelings and emotions that we have are going to actually bring the experience that we want. Then the last one is an international public notice where she talks about, it's called The Heart of the South, and she talks about the civil war between the North and the South of America. And she's pretty much saying that we need to be very mindful that the Civil War, so the Southerners said that they didn't want to be part of the Confederation of States anymore. They wanted to govern themselves. They did not want to be part of what the Northern crowd were doing. Okay, that's what the Southerners said back then and say now. That's why they went to war. The Northerners say that they went to war against the South because the Southerners were slavers, like they dealt in the slave trade, okay? And the Northerners were like, we think that's a really bad thing, okay? So the Civil War was actually not fought over the same ideas. These guys thought this way, and these guys say, no, we fought it for this reason. Now, the actual Civil War, the fighting, the shooting, the killing, was done on the land and soil. The ideas were fought in the air, okay? So we need to know the difference of motivations when people argue, because that's jurisdiction of air. Motivation, when people disagree or have different points of view, that's an air jurisdiction thing, and it's not the physical argument, which is tangible and what takes place on the land and soil. And I think what she's trying to say with this is don't jump to assumptions, don't jump to conclusions. Really try and figure out when there's argument or when there's confrontation, really try and get to the bottom of what people are thinking, where they're coming from, what their motivation is, because that's not going to be the same as what the history books show, because the history books will report on the actions, but it doesn't always talk about the motivation. Okay. And that's where we have to be mindful of air jurisdiction in our personal space. Okay. It's basically what I was saying in the previous one. None of us wake up going, how many people can I upset today? Okay. We have the motivation to have a good day. So, but then we might go out and accidentally trigger someone because we say something in a certain tone and they're feeling whatever they're feeling. And so they take it as a direct thing where we've got no recollection of what we just said. You know, this is how this sort of stuff happens. So then that turns into an argument between these two people. And one of them's thinking, well, I don't know what's going on. They were just whatever. And this other person's going, well, they were having a crack at me. And we're like, what? So that's how land and soil, the physical interaction, and the air jurisdiction, what we think happen in our personal lives. And we need to start being very aware of all of those things. So whilst in the big scheme, we might not need to worry too much about air, but we have to be mindful that that's what's going on in our lives. Okay? Every day, every interaction we have. So that's what she had to say this week.
It was a handful. So Anna wrote it, but Sarah spoke it. And, you know, like I've been in we all, as living beings, all have differences of opinion, eh? And it's not always like I'm right, Alan, and you're wrong. Like you're thinking where you come from and what you know, you believe you're right. And I'm the same. With my knowledge, with my background, I believe I'm right. And so we would just butt heads forever unless we get together and talk and find like common ground. And that doesn't happen enough, I think. So
The other thing too that I think we might touch on, and I want to talk about this on Monday night if no one's got anything else to talk about, but the styles of communication. So we've had Myanna on this chat saying that she's very direct. She just says, no, you're wrong. That's not how it works. Other people would go, well, she's being so mean to me. Whereas Myanna's just saying, no, you're just wrong. There's no personal in it for Myanna. She's just going, ah, this is how it is. Whereas that other person, they're probably a person who'd go, oh, well, I'm not sure that you're quite right. So people take Myanna's style of communication, and I'm using Myanna because she's been very public about it, and she doesn't mind when we talk about that. But Myanna's communication style is extremely direct and extremely blunt. It's not mean. That's just how she talks. But other people are perceiving it as being mean. And so I think we probably need to toughen up a little bit sometimes, or give people grace when we feel that there's been something said that's out of line. Stop and think, is that really that person being nasty, or is that just their style of communication? We all are different. We all think differently and we talk differently. So we need to grow up as a group of people, and that's me being blunt. We need to get past this whole wokeism and, taking offense at every goddamn thing, which we've all been trained to do over the last 10, 15 years. We need to stop being snowflakes, and we need to actually just grow up and start to communicate from the heart and say, did you mean that to sound like a slag off at me? Because that's what it sounded like. And the person will go, no, I just don't like your idea. So, start to get a little bit brave and start to toughen up a little bit, I would say.
It's good advice. It is good advice. And I've learned a long time ago, it's really hard to live like this, what I'm going to tell you now, but you should never take anything personally. And it's hard to live like that. It's hard but if Sarah said something that was nasty to me, I shouldn't take it personally. She's the one with the problem. She's the one that thinks like that. It's not really, you can't project the problem onto me. So you should never take anything personally. And you're right, we should man up a bit, toughen up a bit. And we should question things more, not in a big long wordy way, but we should question things that we don't quite agree with, or if we don't think we've got enough knowledge, we should ask more questions about things, and particularly at this point in time, because the world is changing and stuff that we're involved in. We need to understand, and we need to ask the questions, and we need to be able to ask those questions as well.
The other thing I would say is that, and Wayne's seen me do this, there's been times where I have been out of line, not at a specific person, but there's been times where I've lost my temper and I've said things at meetings. I
wasn't going to say anything, Sarah. You didn't have to fess up.
But Sue's seen it as well. Yeah. And if I actually have hurt someone's feelings, like I've really pushed someone's buttons, I will apologise. If I've done the wrong thing, if I've been out of line, if I've made a gig of myself somewhere, apologise, own it. Just say, look, I'm really sorry. I was wrong. We're all human. Well, you know what I mean.
We're all living beings. Yeah.
We're all living men and women, and none of us are perfect, and we're all going to make mistakes. So the best thing you can do, and the quickest way to gain people's respect, is to apologise when you've been wrong, or apologise when you've upset someone, purposefully. At the same time, I still come back to the whole, toughen up and don't take things personally, because that person's communication style might just be that they are very direct and very blunt. I yield.
Good advice. Good advice. You heard it here first. It must be right. So, anybody got anything else they'd like, any more knowledge they'd like to impart, or should we think about wrapping this up?
We can wrap it up. I just want to let people know we've got Susie on next week from Victoria. She was pulled out of her car and banged into Dame Phyllis Frost prison. You know, here to here. No in between. Just banged into the toughest female prison on Victoria. She is reconveyed, fully reconveyed. So she is going to come on and talk to us next week about that. I have no doubt that it will be a very interesting discussion, because she's got some really interesting insights out of that. So yeah, tune in for that one.
Good work for lining that up too, Sarah. Excellent.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to maybe talk to some of the others and just get them on, just you know, have people compare notes and talk about different things. But I think Susie's a good one to start with, so we'll go with that.
You will.
Yeah, and we'll see.
All right.
And yeah, we'll get on. I'm going to talk to someone else in the next couple of days and see if I can line up someone to come and talk to us about how and when to use our vessels. We have a straw person. We have a military personnel attached to our name. So that person's going to come on and explain to us when it is appropriate to use those names, because we know with the paperwork, we've taken back control of all of that. That's part of our estate. So we now need to know how to utilise those names and when. So I'll get her on, and we can talk about that.
All right. So we've got a bit of stuff coming up. That's good. That's good. All right. I'm going to call it. We're done. We're done, people. We're done for today. Thank you for your time and your energy once again. And
Bye for now.
bye for now. See you next